Hello and welcome to Rambling Weekly. This is the 111th episode. Woo! How you doing? Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing better than how I look, because I don't look very good. I've been, it has been it's been a bit of a rough week. Just a lot of extra with stuff for work. My mother's out of town, so I've had to go over to her place and spending a little bit of extra time each day taking care of the animals and stuff, making sure that there is a presence there so they don't feel too lonely. Just the typical odds and ends and stuff. So that, and it's been like gross and dreary. You know, it's one thing if it's cold and snowy. It's another thing when it's jumps up to 60 and then drops down to 30 something, and then it's like freezing rain and dreary and stuff. And that's probably also got it. People around me have been getting sick, so maybe I'm getting crust like that. It's not. So, but I have a comfy robe on as I make a mess. Yeah. Hi. How's it going? Let's see what has been going on outside of those things I just mentioned. I mean, that's really actually taken a whole bunch of my time. If you haven't, I finally put out part 6 for Fire Emblem. It came out on for Genealogy of the Holy War. My little chat on that. So yeah, check that one out, please. So it was nice to get that squared away. It had been really taking a long time. I apologize, but it's nice to have that part of it done. So got that, and then yeah, it's honestly really all I've done. And that was done over the weekend, last weekend. So it wasn't like I was editing or anything. So just a lot. So, yeah. But hopefully people have been having a little bit better time of it. Yeah, I don't know. That's really it. I legit like a bookkeeping, but I don't think people really care, have interest in me talking about my bookkeeping on stuff. But woohoo, super exciting times. So yeah, I'm trying to think if there's I haven't played anything, I haven't been reading anything, I haven't written anything. Like it was a big wash for this week. And like I did have an instance with work, getting a little trying to figure out stuff, because you know, in the quest for ever more efficiency, trying to figure out and why things are not lining up. And so I had to do some detective work on that, because what they were asking seemed a little off. Like something wasn't quite adding up, so I had to kind of do some figuring out. And I figured it out, so yeah. Problem solved, hopefully. Find out if there's another update soon. Well, I guess one thing I did kind of consider, I think I may have mentioned it in a previous rambling. I am, what is today? Today is the 9th. Okay, there we go. Come on. I am looking to start doing some, I think I might have said it before, I'm going to start doing some Saturday morning-ish streams. So, not like hyper early. Think brunch time. Make yourself a kettle of tea, um, or, or grab yourself a donut. And oh, they're all buried. They're hiding in this mess right here. but I am going to actually do streams. I don't know if it'll be a chapter a stream or if it'll be a couple chapters to streams or something. But I am going to do readings of my books. That is what I've decided on that. Can't copy claim or whatever. Copy strike. I could copy strike myself, but that would be a little psychotic, and I don't actually know how you do that. but yeah, I'm going to read through those and kind of discuss a little bit as best as I can on stuff. So, yeah, and I am going to start with Sadris, even though that was the one I just put out last year. I'm going to start with Sadris and then do Sudraba at some point after. But, and then might try to... Because I know I've dropped off a lot of some of the odds and ends here on Rambling. Like the end of the episode quote, interspliced with music and stuff. So I may try to do things like Aesop's Fables, or just some different odds and ends and stuff. Maybe even I haven't read it yet, but book I don't know. There it is. Maybe something to where taking out just a little bit and reading the book that I'm currently reading, kind of thing, and then trying to give some opinions if there are any opinions to give, or if I find something that I'm like, oh, that's really interesting, and we'll do that. Yeah, I'm going to start doing that, and it'll start at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, yeah, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, February 15th. See you there. But we'll probably start with Sadras to begin with. But, yeah, I've been wanting to do that for a while, and I just haven't really had... and by a while I mean a few months, but it has been a bit of a, like, I was like, okay, I have this idea, I'll start it at the beginning of, not necessarily right at the beginning of the new year, but it started early. I was kind of wanting to do it in January, but things were a little silly, and so even though they are still silly, the silliness persists. So just need to just break through that, and yeah, so we're gonna do that. That is that. So I need to make a memo of this, or I will forget the exact time. This is how you know you've gotten old, is when you're making little memos of crap. Oh, gracious. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. 10 a.m. stream. Smiley face. So, yeah, yeah, because I know David, who's been on before, has always kind of pestered me to do a audio recording for the book, and I would like to do that, but if it's to be done, it should probably be like given to somebody to do. And quite frankly, I don't quite have those sorts of finances to allow that at the moment. So this is about the best happy medium I can do it for. So you could just listen to that and hear me stumble over my own words, and yeah, that is what we do around here. So yeah, that is that. That's the, I guess, the big news. So I started to put together the next video, and I don't know how I'm going to finagle some of it, because some of it I don't have the game for, because I'd like to try to get footage for it, and yeah, it's kind of harkening back, not nearly as silly as some of the videos that I did way back in the day, like favorite gaming or favorite trees in gaming or something. It's basically just favorite like RPG maybe not RPG, favorite game towns is what I did. So I've got a list with some honorable mentions, because I tried to like keep it from being this is my favorite, because you know it's but more of this, I like this one, I like this one, I like this one, and then maybe an honorable mention, because I don't want to be like, oh well, I like all the towns in this one series or something. So nothing fancy, been done to death. But you know what? I wanted to do it. It's my turn to do something that's 15 years old as a YouTube idea. Yeah, because at the end of that part 6, spoiler alert, for Genealogy, I discuss how I wanted to do some other things, but I do want to go back to it to stitch it all together. I think I even mentioned this in the previous rambling. But to stitch it up and all that sort of jazz, because not only stitch it up, but in between each part add in a lot more information, whether that's about Kaga, or just stuff like development, and just music, commercials, and odds and ends. And maybe I kind of thought about it as well as considering as a little prompt before getting into like the each part, showing the like a quick little who's involved, so there's a little bit better visual on that, because I didn't want to do that during the parts so much, because I'm a little bit more of a theater of the mind kind of person. I know that doesn't work for, what is that, aphantasian people, like the people who have I think it's aphantasia, they don't visualize very well, plus it is a visual medium, so kind of going against it to some degree. There are some connections, but mentioning names of certain characters and stuff, it's a little, when you have so many, and this is kind of the hard thing to try to marry with Fire Emblem, and people would probably say that Three Houses maybe has done one of the better jobs. I wouldn't disagree with that. I would say it's certainly done a much better job at trying to make make more known about the characters, and try to imbue the characters with a little bit more weight to them. So I mean, problem is that they're very tropey, and it almost to me it felt like you could cut them and you could interlay it with the characters from like Trails, and it's very similar, very tropey, and heck, you could even do that in between the houses to a degree, but my problem, or I guess my issue, is that in trying to do that, it blows out the length of the game, because you have this, you got a few of these battles and stuff, and then you can go back and chit chat, and that really hinders it for me. But that's that's a personal thing. To go along with that personal thing, I think the Ike duology, Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, probably did it better, where you you'd still have it, but it would be just, and I get it, it's a lot of, just so you're not running around. But in the same hand, what is the difference between running around and then chit-chatting, and then, or just having the scene unfurl? So it's almost like think of like a stage play where the curtains are pulled back, and then the curtains are drawn, and then they're closed. So to me, it's fine, because it is saving a lot of time that's unnecessarily being spent trying to run around, seeing shiny things, helping. When it's kind of like, just let the scene unfurl. But that because that was probably the worst, or I guess the weakest. I won't say the worst. Weakest aspect of Fire Emblem, and I know they tried to strengthen it in Gaiden, or what's that? Echoes, I think that's what the remake was called. With having them be a little bit more involved and scenes and moving around and stuff, but it's always been a little bit. It's a hard thing to try to marry, right? Especially when you get into the is it Sacred Stones? I think it might be Sacred Stones. In Sacred Stones, there's one of those GBA ones, and I think it's the last one, that you do one of the pairings, like, they're just kind of fighting next to each other, and then you get to their strongest bond link thing, and they question marks, but it seems to insinuate that they pretty much they do it on the battlefield, where you're like, beg your pardon? This is a little this is I don't know about this. A little excessive. Not quite appropriate. But it is always felt like a very weak aspect of Fire Emblem. But in the same hand, it is, everybody always wants to talk about like being able to make your own players and having that. You kind of get that, I feel like, in the older ones, because you have to imbue them with certain personalities and quirks. They come flavored in certain ways, and their RNG chances of stats increasing gear them towards certain ways. Like I don't ever want to use Marcus. Marcus is trash. He's not a very good character. He's never been a very good character for me. But maybe somebody has a really good, like, he does something. I know I've explained this before. Just my feelings on it, but like playing Mystery of the Emblem the first time through, you have the first game for the most part, and then whole new second thing, sequel game, and you play that, and the Ogma was super awesome for me, and then the second time I would play through it, he was super awesome for me. I think he was like 2 times through, and then playing through it again, like, he wasn't very good, but Navarre stepped up, and Navarre had been like not very good for me, so like you kind of you sort of get these little attachments for him. You're like, heck yeah, there you go, you're kicking butt. Or you have some other character step up. I know Marth wasn't very good for me a few times, but then he really like leveled up in a way that was really good when I had done those old videos. Same thing goes for Roy. Like, every time I've played through Binding Blade, it's the 6th one, the one I never escape it. The one before Blazing, he's always been really good for me, and he is not a very good unit. Like, his stat growths are garbage. They're trash. They're not very good. But he's always turned out really well for me. So don't know what to say. I don't know. That's kind of the fun, I feel like, with that, is that you have that, and it's gotten away from that, especially when you were like Awakening, when you could change all the classes and stuff. I did not like that. Was not a fan of that at all. Like, I'm fine with, leveling up into like having like branching classes. I think that's fine. I think that can be really neat. But to just be like, oh, you can go from this class to this class to this class, I wasn't. It was not my thing. So, yeah. To the topic. To the topic. Uh, yeah. So this has kind of come about, sort of not quite full circle because the game hasn't been released yet, but Rockstar has decided they've wanted to try to seed in the idea of making GTA 6 a $100 game. I don't know if some other people have talked about this, and back in the day, that if you're taking inflation, you could point to, oh, hey, because I remember some Super Nintendo games when they first came out being like $100 and something odd dollars. I want to say Yoshi's Island was like that. I could be wrong, but I know that they were pretty expensive. But it's kind of carried over. Problem is that we've gotten to a point for materials, right? The materials used in those old games, you would get a box with the box art, a fairly decent booklet, and maybe some other little things slipped in there, the cartridge, and all the shipping involved with that. Where nowadays, you just have the little plastic shell, and sometimes there's a disc in there. Sometimes it's just a little slip that says, "Hey, here's your download," which I think, because that was the argument that was made when they started going to more digital stuff, was, oh, well, this will help reduce costs. And it hasn't. Instead, you've seen this backslide in the sales of things. Every now and again you'd have a spike, but they've flatlined and have receded a bit as as a whole. They might not have, but it's for like the big punching ones, it's kind of compressed down. But I think it's also because people are like, I can play this one instead, or I'll play this instead, and so there's a little bit more a la carte going on. But they've certainly tried to do some rumblings to get this to go, and even just recently, they're in the last few weeks, they've kind of put it out there again, like IGN put out a thing about saying it be a bridge too far even for Grand Theft Auto, as if somehow Grand Theft Auto is the shining hill on the mountain. They certainly act like it is able to do that, and they're the ones that can make the Gambit for it. They probably won't, because there was already a bit of grumbling from going from 60 to 70. It was a couple of years ago, and then to tack on another 30, it would be really, really tough. But I know there are people who are like, oh yes, like I've seen comments of people like, it's worth it because you can get so much out of it, and it's like, well, maybe, probably. I mean, it's a safe bet to make, but it's, I mean, it could be one of those things that maybe it might take a few, because it might be like, it's doing good, then all of a sudden, no. Or it's, it starts out really crummy because they haven't put everything together. I don't know if that's quite the case, but it may be. But the I wouldn't. I certainly would, but I'm also not a GTA fan. Like, if you were like, hey, here's a new, I mean, I don't think there is anything that would. I think I paid $45 for. Where's that game at? I think it's hiding in here. Yes. I paid like $45.50 for the Fantasia Neo Dimension, and A, still haven't even opened it yet. B, I was already kind of like, man, I really don't want to spend too much more. Maybe my popper broke, but can't hang with the cool kids. But I spent $150 on the Thrakia Deluxe, the Thrakia 776 Deluxe pack. $150. The only other time I kind of considered possibly was they had a separate release of like the actual game, because the deluxe pack for Thrakia did not have the printout for the box and everything, so it's in this it's got a little sticker for Fire Emblem, and then the rest of it's just kind of like this janky almost government issued cardboard box for the game cartridge, the game cassette, as it were, and it's even the game itself is kind of got a similar thing, because it was just on a copy cartridge, and then they re-released it with the actual like proper Super Famicom box and stuff, and that was about $100, and I had considered that as well, but then I was like, you know what, I already spent $150 on this deluxe pack. I am not about to drop another $100 just to make me feel good and be like, yes, I got that. I get the push to, this is I guess what kind of just doesn't make sense to me, is like, if you're in a business and it's doing something like this, like, games are not a necessity. Are they a nice distraction? Yes, but it's not necessarily like you can it's not like there's, how to put it, like a supply and demand thing, right? There's so much of a supply that like you have a lot less I don't know how to put it. I'm trying to think. It's like there's not as much wiggle room to be like, well, we want to make it cost more to offset all of our costs. And it's like, well, why don't you look at yourself and kind of figure out, what are we doing? What could we possibly do to try to figure this out? Like, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of introspective when it comes to budgeting things. It's just kind of like, well, it costs more, so we just need to make it, people spend more. Let's not include the fact that they've raked in billions upon how much money did their online thing like let's see here. So this is going, okay, this was just a couple days ago, as in 2 days ago. It was modified. GTA sales have surpassed 210 million units, states Take-Two. 210 million units. That's just for the game. Now, add on to that an online service, all those microtransactions. So it's, reached, the game has reached $1 billion in sales. You know, and the GTA 5 online was free for every copy of it, until it was made a standalone, and then there was GTA Plus membership, and this was back in 2022. And while I understand that there's a lot of money involved in like upkeep for servers and updating the game and whatnot, like I said, you got, you have microtransactions and all that sort of fun jazz. And it says the GTA franchise may hit 10 billion in revenue between 5 and 6. 10 billion. And here they are trying to say, well, we need to offset by, not that there's been rumblings about it, and how much is really being said behind the scene to be like, hey, seed this idea in here. And then you have others claiming, well, other companies are looking for GTA to lead the charge and put it out for 100 so we can increase our own. And it's really, you're really trying to, like, I get it. It isn't great when you're working on razor thin margins, but why are you working on razor thin margins, and what's happening to cause that? And perhaps maybe if that's the case, maybe something's up, because it's going to get to a point, when you're increasing so much that it's like people will naturally just be like, yeah, I ain't doing that. But there will still be those people. I think that's the Gambit, is that you foster enough of an attitude and type of person, like a fanatic for something, who's just like, I have to have it. Like, I've got to. I'm such a big fan of something. And they don't have either the want or desire. I don't want to say ability, but I mean, they don't have the willingness to be like, I am not, like, to say no. I think that's part of the gambit on this, is that they've hopefully accrued enough people in to be like, or they make the game $80 and then they make the online thing $20. Boom, there's $100 right there. It seems they were so gracious to give the online for free. Until it was sold separately. But you have there's ways they can kind of finagle that, and then that's something you might see is more of is, oh, here's this, but if you want the online, it's going to be this. Once again, trying to find new and exciting ways. Everybody always complained about the cable thing, where it's like, well, cable's so expensive, and then initially streaming was super cheap, but now to stream, if you want to do stream certain things, it's like you have to have 4 or 5 of them to, kind of, or you have to do this rotating shuffle of, oh, well, I'll take this one, I'll do Netflix this time, I'll do Paramount Plus next time or something, and go through that, and how much that is balloon costs. And it's the same thing that they're trying to do with this. It's like, oh, well, it's just as long as we can just start piecemealing everything and making it cost just that little bit. Oh, yeah. And then if you get people who, like, take Fire Emblem, like, as much as a fan as I am of it, I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh yeah, I want it. Like Fates is a perfect example of this. I did not like Awakening. Surprise. Shock and horror. I was not a fan of it. And whenever I hear or read anything that says Fates or Fire Emblem Awakening saved the series, and then I look and see what it is now with the Colgate hero of Engage, and just how silly it all looks. Even if it may play well, it looks silly. And you can have that. I don't, like, that's not really, it's not as interesting to me. I don't need to be the 13th Fire Emblem or whatever, 13th Warrior, Antonio Banderas kind of thing. Like, it is not what it once was. And even after Kagad left after Thrakia, it changed. And they kind of got it back a little bit with the Ike ones, but tastes had moved. Plus, when you had a game for the GameCube and a game for the Wii looking pretty similar to one another, it kind of soured some people on it. But yeah, that's kind of how that cookie crumbled. But anyways, Fates came out, or Awakening came out, didn't like it, and then Fates was coming out, and they're like, hey guys, look what we're doing. This cool concept where you can play 2 different games and then have a DLC for the third one so you can get the full story. Nah, I'm good. Like, absolutely not. I don't care if they're a little bit cheaper than what they would normally be. No. So I didn't play Fates, and then I picked up Echoes because that was actually a really good remake of Gaiden. I eventually picked up Three Houses, even though I was not really, a friend and coworker. Actually, Zach, he had been on one of these episodes. He had recommended it, and he's a big Fire Emblem fan. And it's like, I may not, and I'll do this every now and again. It's like I may not. It doesn't look interesting to me, but maybe I'm missing something. And I picked it up, and I think I rolled a die to pick between the 3, and I ended up with Dimitri's. I think that's who that is, the blue one. And I got shortly after the midway point or so, and I'm like, I'm not really. I'll probably come back to it at some point, but I wasn't that impressed with it. But it wasn't awful. I was like, I could see some things being interesting here, but like I said, it just kind of, the time ballooned too long on it. It's just like, okay, I don't really want to be at the academy. This is and then Engage came out, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, absolutely not. This looks ridiculous. And aforementioned Zach was like, yeah, this is ridiculous. And I've heard, it plays well, it just, the story isn't much of anything, and it's not to say that the story needs to be some sort of mind-rendingly, oh my goodness, but when it doesn't, when it's just, it's silly, it can be silly, but it's, and there can be pockets of it, but when it is just like the presentation, when it's a clown show, I ain't interested. I ain't scared of clowns, but I really am not looking to go to the circus. And that's all there is to it. So I didn't pick it up, but I know a lot of people aren't like that, and there are a lot of people who are like that. But I mean, if you have enough people who are just like, well, I love 5, GTA 5, and it's just super awesome, I can't wait for the next one. Yeah, they're gonna go into it, and if that is what Take-Two and Rockstar are really kind of pushing for, it feels like, is that they've got enough of a base, and that they've got enough people, either fellow developers in studios, feeding these same sort of ideas for other game articles and game journalists and stuff to write up on, and to be like, yes, this could be $100, could be $100. As long as you keep putting the idea out there, people might be okay with it after a while. and there's certainly people who are like, yes, it's totally worth it for it. I mean, if that, like, if for example, there's been rumblings that the next Fire Emblem game is actually going to be a remake, and the remake probably be Genealogy, which would be cool. However, if it came out that it was going to be $100, I would be like, nah, I will hold off on this, and maybe get it on a sale. Like, it is not, like, absolutely could not see myself dropping $100. Even though there's a possibility that it does do a really good job of recapturing it. I mean, they did a really good job with Guidance remake, so like they do have that going for them. So I just couldn't see myself dropping $100 on a game, and I don't know. I've got enough of a backlog, and I wonder if that also wouldn't play into it. It's kind of similar to the Gambit that a lot of renters, especially if they're like bigger renters, seem to be pushing for. I've seen this in different parts of the US that go, say rent is so much. Let's say it's $600, and at $600 you can have an occupancy rate of 98%. However, if you jump that number up to 900 and you have an occupancy rate of 70%, I'm just throwing... They've done enough to know that they can jump that up so much higher and have a... Third time's a charm. And have a decrease in that occupancy rate, but there's still enough there that they actually make more money despite that. People gotta live somewhere. Now, do people have to play a game? Is that seated in enough people? Or is that seated in enough people? Imbued in them enough to be like, I have to play this game? Is it like that? Is it at that point? Oh, I guess we'll see. But we're seeing a lot more of that kind of behavior. Crank up the costs of things, and even if fewer people are paying for it, there's enough of a spike in the cost to offset the ones who aren't anymore. And I think that's been a play to make for a while, but I think that's the play that's being made a lot more frequently and a lot more in environments of business. So, but yeah, personally, I if they're worried about the lessening of players and stuff, that will certainly happen, and I think we'll get more of just people going, I've got a huge backlog, I'll play that instead, or find something else to do. Books are cheap, buy my book. Come join on Saturday, February 15th, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Read along with me. It's buried under stuff, and I can't. Oh, phooey. Phooey. Oh well. Sage's Calling Part 1. Anyways, that is what I have. Let me know what you think down below, and yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching, listening, all that fun jazz. Enjoy your day, weekday, weeknights, weekend, week beginning, and everything in between. I did not even. I did not decide on a outro tune. Well, shoot. I guess we will go with the It's a bit of a somber tune, but we'll go with we'll keep with the genealogy music because I'm in that kind of mood, and we'll do the part one medley, and have that as the outro. So that's it. Thanks once again. Doodles. See you next week.